What if the person you trusted most became your killer? Today, we dive into 3 chilling cases: Kelsey Berreth, Jennifer Dulos, and Maya Millete, women from Colorado, Connecticut, and California whose lives were stolen or are presumed lost by those they once relied on. A routine grocery trip, a school drop-off, a day at home. Each started ordinary until it didn't. From a fiancé staging a Thanksgiving murder, to a bloody garage and a bitter divorce, to a husband casting spells to control his wife, the evidence is stark: blood, betrayal, and unanswered questions. These aren't just stories, they're warnings, backed by police reports and courtroom records, demanding we pay attention. By the end, you'll know their last traceable moments and the men accused of taking them. So hit like, subscribe, and share. Let's unravel the truth together, starting with Kelsey Berreth in Woodland Park, Colorado, on a Thanksgiving day that turned deadly in 2018. Kelsey Berreth was 29 years old in November 2018, a woman who had built a steady life in Woodland Park, Colorado, a small mountain town about 90 minutes southwest of Denver, nestled at 8,500 feet above sea level. She was a flight instructor, trained to guide planes through the skies, a job that demanded precision and calm under pressure. She was also a mother to a 1-year-old daughter, Kaylee, born in October 2017, a child she shared with her fiancé, Patrick Frazee. The two had met online in 2016, and by 2018, they were engaged, though their relationship was far from smooth. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, disagreements over parenting, finances, and their future together. Kelsey lived in a modest townhome on East Lake Drive, while Frazee, a farrier who shoed horses for a living, stayed on a 35-acre ranch 15 miles away in Florissant. They were not living together, a sign of the strain that had already begun to define them. November 22, 2018, was Thanksgiving Day, a holiday that typically brings families together in Woodland Park, a place of just over 7,000 people, where snow dusts the pines and the air carries a quiet chill. For Kelsey, it was a day off from work, a chance to spend time with Kaylee. She had no major plans beyond a simple outing, nothing to suggest the hours ahead would mark the end of her life. Her family based in Idaho expected to hear from her as the weekend unfolded. Her mother, Cheryl Berreth, described Kelsey as responsible, independent, and deeply devoted to her daughter, a woman who texted regularly and rarely let days pass without checking in. But that Thanksgiving, something shifted. Kelsey Berreth stepped into a routine moment and never stepped out. Patrick Frazee, then 32, was the other half of this story. He presented himself as a hard-working man, tending to livestock and horses across Teller County. Yet those who knew him later told police of a temper, a controlling streak, and a growing resentment toward Kelsey. The couple's engagement was more a formality than a promise by late 2018, with Kelsey reportedly considering a break. She had confided in friends about Frazee's pressure to conform to his expectations, a dynamic that left her uneasy. On November 22nd, Woodland Park was a postcard of small-town America. Families gathering, stores quieting down for the holiday. For Kelsey Berreth, it was the last day anyone would see her alive. The last confirmed sighting of Kelsey Berreth came at 12:27 p.m. on November 22nd, 2018. Surveillance cameras at a Safeway grocery store in Woodland Park captured her walking through the aisles, pushing a cart with Kaylee seated inside. She wore a white sweater and jeans, her brown hair pulled back, her focus on the task at hand, picking up a few items for the holiday. The footage shows her checking out, paying with cash, and leaving the store with her daughter. It's a mundane scene, 11 minutes of normalcy preserved on grainy video, time-stamped and later dissected by investigators. No one in that store could have known they were watching the final public moments of her life. Patrick Frazee later told police he met Kelsey that afternoon, sometime after her Safeway trip, to exchange custody of Kaylee. He claimed they rendezvoused at her townhome around 1 p.m., that she handed over their daughter, and that he left with Kaylee shortly after. He said Kelsey seemed fine. Nothing unusual, no arguments, just a quick handoff. According to Frazee, he then drove back to his ranch in Florissant with Kaylee, leaving Kelsey behind to enjoy her day off. That was his story, delivered calmly to detectives in the days that followed. But the timeline he offered would soon crack under the weight of evidence he couldn't explain. 3 days later, on November 25th, Kelsey's phone sent 2 text messages. The first went to her employer at Dulos Aviation, where she taught flight courses, saying she wouldn't be in for her next shift, a Sunday message from a woman who rarely missed work. The second went to Frazee, a casual exchange about Kaylee. But those texts didn't come from Woodland Park. Cell tower records showed her phone pinging near Gooding, Idaho, 600 miles northwest of her home, at 5:13 p.m. that day. Kelsey had no known plans to travel to Idaho, a state where her parents lived, but where she hadn't mentioned going. Her family and friends found it unthinkable she'd leave Kaylee behind or vanish without a word. The texts raised a question that hung over the case. Who had her phone, and why was it so far from where she was last seen? By December 2nd, 10 days had passed since Thanksgiving, and Cheryl Berreth couldn't shake her worry. Kelsey hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't responded to messages, a silence that broke every pattern her mother knew. Cheryl contacted Frazee, who said he hadn't heard from Kelsey either, but suggested she might have gone hiking or taken a spontaneous trip. Unsatisfied, Cheryl called the Woodland Park Police Department that Sunday and reported her daughter missing. Officers went to Kelsey's townhome that day, finding her car in the driveway, her front door unlocked, and no sign of her inside. A cinnamon roll sat uneaten on the counter, a detail that stuck with Cheryl. Kelsey loved baking, and it looked like she'd been interrupted. The Safeway footage, Frazee's account, the Idaho texts, and Cheryl's alarm set the stage for what came next. Kelsey Berreth, last seen at 12:27 p.m. on November 22nd, had vanished. Her 1-year-old daughter was with Frazee, her phone was inexplicably in another state, and her home held secrets that would soon unravel a calculated crime. The police were now involved, and the holiday calm of Woodland Park was about to give way to a search for a woman who would never be found alive. When Woodland Park police entered Kelsey Berreth's townhome on December 2nd, 2018, they found a scene that didn't match Patrick Frazee's story of a simple custody handoff. The front door was unlocked, her car sat in the driveway, and inside, small details hinted at something unfinished. A cinnamon roll on the counter, a home left mid-moment. But it was the bathroom that shifted the case from a missing person report to a murder investigation. Officers noticed faint stains on the floor and walls, and a luminol test revealed traces of blood. Forensic analysis later confirmed it was Kelsey's, a discovery that turned the quiet townhome into a crime scene. The amount wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough to suggest violence, and enough to make police question what had happened after her Safeway trip on November 22nd. Suspicion quickly fell on Frazee, the last person known to have seen her. On December 4th, police interviewed him at his Florissant ranch. He stuck to his account. He'd picked up Kaylee around 1 p.m. on Thanksgiving, left Kelsey at home, and hadn't heard from her since. But the Idaho text from her phone on November 25th, pinging 600 miles away in Gooding, didn't add up. Frazee had no explanation for how her phone traveled that far, and his calm demeanor began to fray as detectives pressed him. Cell tower data showed his own phone had been in Woodland Park that Thanksgiving afternoon, near Kelsey's home, contradicting any claim he'd left quickly with Kaylee. The net was tightening, but police needed more than blood and phone records to break the case open. That break came on December 14th, when a woman named Crystal Lee Kenny walked into the Teller County Sheriff's Office with a story that would seal Frazee's fate. Kenny, a 32-year-old nurse from Idaho, had been Frazee's mistress for years, a relationship he'd kept hidden from Kelsey. She told investigators Frazee had called her on November 21st, one day before Thanksgiving, asking her to drive to Colorado to help with a problem. He'd hinted at killing Kelsey before, she said, even asking her twice in prior months to poison her coffee, requests she'd refused. This time he was resolute. Kenny arrived in Woodland Park on November 22nd, but claims she backed out again, leaving before anything happened. What she revealed next, though, was far worse than indecision. Kenny confessed that Frazee called her again on November 23rd, admitting he'd beaten Kelsey to death with a baseball bat in her townhome that afternoon, while Kaylee was in another room. He'd wrapped her body in a blanket, he told her, and needed help cleaning up. Kenny drove back on November 24th, entering Kelsey's home to find blood splattered across the bathroom, on the toilet, the walls, the floor. She spent hours scrubbing it down with bleach, trying to erase the evidence, while Frazee took Kelsey's body to his ranch. There he burned it in a metal trough, using gasoline and motor oil to reduce it to ash, with Kaylee still in his care nearby. Kenny said she watched the flames from a distance, then took Kelsey's phone at Frazee's direction, driving it to Idaho to send those November 25th texts. Misdirection to buy him time. Police corroborated her account step by step. A search of Frazee's ranch on December 17th found the trough, its contents scorched and unidentifiable, though a fragment of a tooth, possibly human, later surfaced in testing, too damaged to confirm as Kelsey's. The Safeway footage placed Kelsey alive at 12:27 p.m. Frazee's phone records showed him near her home until late afternoon on November 22nd, consistent with Kenny's timeline. Searches of a landfill near his property, where he dumped trash days later, turned up nothing. No body, no definitive remains. But the blood, the phone data, and Kenny's testimony were enough. On December 21, 2018, Patrick Frazee was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and solicitation to commit murder. The case of a missing mother had become a calculated execution laid bare. Patrick Frazee's trial began on November 1, 2019, in Teller County District Court, nearly a year after Kelsey's disappearance. Prosecutors built their case on the foundation of Kenny's testimony, now a cooperating witness after pleading guilty to tampering with evidence. She took the stand for 2 days, detailing Frazee's plan, the bat, the burning, and her role in the cover-up, her voice steady, her regret palpable. The blood in Kelsey's bathroom, confirmed by DNA, backed her story, as did Frazee's phone records placing him at the scene. No body was presented, a hurdle in murder trials, but Colorado law doesn't require one for a conviction, and the evidence was overwhelming. Frazee's defense argued Kenny was unreliable, a scorned lover spinning lies, but they offered no alibi, no explanation for the blood or the Idaho texts. On November 18, 2019, after just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Frazee guilty of first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, and tampering with a corpse. The courtroom was silent as Judge Scott Sells handed down the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 156 years for the lesser charges, a total erasure of any future outside bars. Frazee showed no emotion, his head bowed, as Kaylee's custody passed to Cheryl Berreth, who'd lost her daughter to the man now locked away. The verdict closed a chapter, but not the wound. Kelsey's remains were never found. Her final resting place, a secret Frazee has never revealed. Crystal Lee Kenny faced her own reckoning. Her plea deal, struck in January 2019, required her full cooperation in exchange for leniency. Initially sentenced to 3 years for evidence tampering, she appealed, and in January 2021, a judge reduced it to 18 months, citing her testimony's role in convicting Frazee. She served her time and faded from public view, a footnote in a case she helped unravel. The absence of Kelsey's body didn't weaken the outcome. Blood, phone records, and a witness who'd seen the fire were enough to seal it. By April 2, 2025, Frazee remains in a Colorado prison, his appeals exhausted, his silence unbroken. Kelsey Berreth's life ended at 29, but the evidence ensured her killer didn't walk free. From Colorado's mountains, where Kelsey Berreth's story ended in a trough of ash, we moved to Connecticut suburbs, where Jennifer Dulos vanished in May 2019. A mother of 5 caught in a different web of betrayal, her fate marked by blood and unanswered questions. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button for more cases like this. Jennifer Dulos was 50 years old, a woman whose life had once been defined by creativity and family, but was now shadowed by conflict. She lived in New Canaan, Connecticut, a wealthy suburb 50 miles northeast of New York City, known for its quiet streets and sprawling homes. Jennifer was a writer, a graduate of Brown University, and the mother of 5 children, ranging in age from 8 to 13, whom she'd raised with her husband, Fotis Dulos. By 2019, that marriage had unraveled into a bitter estrangement, marked by a contentious divorce and a fierce custody battle. Jennifer had moved to New Canaan from Farmington, Connecticut in 2017, renting a house on Wells Lane to escape what she described in court filings as an unsafe environment with Fotis. She alleged years of controlling behavior and infidelity, claims that fueled a legal fight stretching over 2 years. Fotis Dulos, 51 at the time, was a real estate developer and the founder of 4 Group, a company building luxury homes across Connecticut. Born in Greece and raised in Turkey, he'd come to the U.S. for college and built a polished image. Athletic, successful, charming. But beneath that surface, trouble brewed. He remained in the couple's Farmington mansion, 70 miles from New Canaan, while Jennifer sought sole custody of their children, citing his temper and an affair with Michelle Troconis, a woman he'd moved into the Farmington home by 2018. Court records show Jennifer feared for her safety, writing in 2017, "I am afraid of my husband. I know that filing for divorce may be the trigger for his acting out." By May 2019, the divorce was still unresolved, a pressure cooker ready to burst. May 24th, 2019 was a Friday, the start of Memorial Day weekend in New Canaan, a time when families like Jennifer's might plan outings or rest. For her, it was a day that began with routine, getting her 5 children, 2 sets of twins and a singleton, ready for school. She'd settled into her role as a single mother, managing a busy household while writing for a blog she'd started, Patch of Blue. New Canaan, with its population of 20,000, felt like a safe haven, a place to rebuild. But that morning, a school drop-off would mark the last time anyone could confirm Jennifer Dulos was alive, turning a typical day into a tragedy that would echo far beyond Connecticut. Jennifer Dulos's last known actions began at 7:40 a.m. on May 24, 2019. She loaded her 5 children into her black 2017 Chevrolet Suburban and drove them to New Canaan Country School, a private academy less than 2 miles from her home. School staff saw her drop them off around 8 a.m. A familiar sight, Jennifer in the driver's seat, the kids piling out with backpacks. She waved goodbye and pulled away, heading back to 69 Wells Lane, a 6-bedroom house she'd rented since 2017. It was a 10-minute drive, a route she knew well, and by all accounts, she reached her garage that morning. What happened next is where the timeline blurs into silence. Jennifer had appointments scheduled that day, 2 in New York City, a 90-minute trip she'd made before. She was due to meet a friend and handle some business, plans confirmed by texts and calls in the days prior. But by 11 a.m., she hadn't left New Canaan, and her phone went unanswered. Her nanny, Lauren Almeida, who lived at the Wells Lane house, was away in New York with her own family for the holiday weekend, leaving Jennifer alone. When she missed those appointments, friends grew concerned. One called her cell repeatedly, no response. Another reached out to Almeida, who tried texting and calling too. Nothing. By 7 p.m., with no word and no sign of Jennifer picking up her kids, who'd been collected by a friend after school, those closest to her knew something was wrong. At 7:30 p.m., 2 friends reported Jennifer missing to the New Canaan Police Department. Officers arrived at Wells Lane within the hour, finding her Suburban gone and the house eerily still. A search of the property turned up no immediate answers, but a clue emerged nearby. At 8:45 p.m., police located Jennifer's SUV, abandoned on Lapham Road, a wooded area less than a mile from her home near Waveney Park. The keys were inside, the engine cold. No signs of a struggle within the vehicle itself. It had been there for hours, unnoticed by passers-by until a resident tipped off the police. The discovery raised an urgent question. If Jennifer had driven here, where was she now? Back at the house, officers secured the scene, and by May 25th, a fuller picture emerged. Jennifer's purse, phone, and daily essentials were still inside, items she wouldn't leave behind for a trip to New York or anywhere else. Her friends told police she'd never abandoned her children or vanish without a word, especially amid the custody fight with Fotis. The last contact from her phone was a call she'd answered at 8:05 a.m., likely as she returned home from the school run. After that, nothing. No texts, no pings, no trace. The abandoned car, the missed appointments, and the silence from a mother of 5 pointed to something deliberate, something violent. And the investigation that followed would soon turn its focus to the man she'd been trying to escape. The investigation into Jennifer Dulos's disappearance began in earnest on May 25, 2019, when New Canaan police returned to her Wells Lane home with a search warrant. What they found in the garage turned a missing person case into a suspected homicide. Bloodstains, some visible, some revealed by luminol, marked the concrete floor and a Range Rover parked inside. Forensic tests confirmed the blood was Jennifer's, and the volume suggested a serious injury, not a minor accident. Signs of cleanup were evident: smudges of diluted blood, traces of cleaning agents, and a missing floor mat from the vehicle. Someone had tried to erase what happened, but the evidence lingered, pointing to an attack sometime after Jennifer returned from dropping her kids at school around 8 a.m. on May 24th. Suspicion zeroed in on Fotis Dulos, Jennifer's estranged husband, whose divorce battle with her had grown increasingly hostile. Police learned he'd been in New Canaan that morning, despite living 70 miles away in Farmington. On May 24th at 5:30 p.m., Hartford police surveillance cameras, 70 miles from New Canaan, captured Fotis and his girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, in a black Ford Raptor pickup truck, stopping at over 30 trash bins along Albany Avenue. They were seen dumping garbage bags, a deliberate act that raised red flags. On May 29th, investigators retrieved some of those bags, finding a chilling haul: bloody clothing, sponges, gloves, and a bra, all testing positive for Jennifer's DNA. A poncho and a Vineyard Vines shirt, items Jennifer was known to wear, were among the discarded evidence soaked in her blood. The truck belonged to a four-group employee, Pavel Gumieni, who'd lent it to Fotis that day. A search of the vehicle uncovered more: blood on the passenger seat and door, again matching Jennifer's DNA, along with Fotis's fingerprints. Cell phone records placed Fotis in New Canaan from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on May 24th, near Jennifer's home, contradicting his initial claim he'd been in Farmington all day. Troconis, questioned on June 1st, admitted she was with Fotis in Hartford, but claimed she didn't know what was in the bags, a statement police doubted, given her presence during the disposal. The couple's actions painted a picture of a planned cover-up, with the truck tying Fotis directly to the crime scene. Searches for Jennifer's body began immediately, spanning New Canaan's Waveney Park, where her Suburban was found, and extending to Farmington, Hartford, and beyond. Over 50 locations were scoured, ponds dragged, forests combed, landfills sifted, based on tips and cell data. On June 3rd, a tip led police to a property Fotis owned in Avon, Connecticut, but nothing turned up. The Hartford trash bins yielded the most concrete evidence, yet Jennifer's remains eluded investigators. On June 1st, Fotis and Troconis were arrested for tampering with evidence and hindering prosecution, released on bond. But the case was far from over. Detectives believed Fotis had attacked Jennifer in her garage, moved her body in the Suburban, dumped the car, and then used the truck to dispose of evidence with Troconis' help. By late 2019, the evidence mounted: blood in the garage, the Hartford dumps, the truck's DNA. On January 7, 2020, Connecticut State Police charged Fotis Dulos with murder, felony murder, and kidnapping, alleging he'd lain in wait for Jennifer, killed her, and hidden her body in an unknown location. Troconis faced upgraded charges of conspiracy to commit murder based on her role in the cleanup. The arrest warrant detailed a premeditated act fueled by the divorce and custody fight. Fotis stood to lose millions and his children if Jennifer prevailed in court. Despite extensive searches, over 600 tips, hundreds of hours, no body was recovered, leaving a gap in the case that would test the legal system's limits. The investigation had exposed a brutal crime, but Jennifer Dulos remained lost, her fate resting on the evidence her killer couldn't fully erase. Fotis Dulos never faced trial. On January 28, 2020, 3 weeks after his murder charges, he attempted suicide at his Farmington home, connecting a hose from his car's exhaust into the garage. Found unconscious, he was rushed to a hospital in New York, where he died on January 30th, 2020, at age 52, still on a ventilator. His death came one day before a scheduled bond hearing, ending any chance of a confession or courtroom reckoning. In a note found at the scene, Fotis denied killing Jennifer, claiming, "If you are looking for a body, you won't find it," and insisting Troconis and others were innocent. Police dismissed it as a final deflection. His DNA on the evidence and his movements on May 24th told a different story. Michelle Troconis's legal path stretched longer. Charged with conspiracy, evidence tampering, and hindering prosecution, she maintained she didn't know Jennifer was dead or what Fotis had done. Her trial began in January 2024, and on March 1st, 2024, a Stamford jury convicted her on all counts after 7 weeks of testimony. The Hartford footage, her inconsistent statements, and her presence during the cover-up swayed the verdict. On May 31st, 2024, she was sentenced to 14.5 years in prison, plus 5 years probation, a punishment reflecting her role as an accessory, not the killer. She's appealed, but as of April 2nd, 2025, she remains incarcerated, her case a rare conviction tied to a murder without a body. A third figure, Kent Mawhinney, Fotis's attorney and friend, was charged in 2020 with conspiracy to commit murder, accused of helping plan the crime. His trial, delayed by legal wrangling, is still pending as of April 2025, leaving a loose end in the saga. Jennifer's disappearance spurred Jennifer's Law, passed in Connecticut in June 2021, expanding domestic violence protections to include coercive control, legislation her family championed in her memory. Fotis's death closed one door, but Troconis's conviction and the law's passage kept Jennifer's name alive. Her body remains unfound, her 5 children, now in their late teens and early 20s, raised by her family in New York. Their mother's fate a wound that evidence couldn't fully heal. Now we head to Chula Vista, California, where Maya Millete's story unfolded in January 2021. A mother of 3 whose vanishing would echo the same themes of trust shattered and justice sought, her case still unresolved as the search for answers continues. Before we go on, kindly subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button. Maya Millete was 39 years old in January 2021, a woman balancing a demanding life in Chula Vista, California, a city of 275,000 just south of San Diego, near the U.S.-Mexico border. She worked as a civilian employee for the U.S. Navy, a contract specialist at Naval Base San Diego, a role that required focus and reliability. Maya was also a mother of 3, a 10-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 4-year-old son, raising them in a 2-story home on Paseo Los Gatos with her husband, Larry Millete. Married since 2000, the couple had built a family rooted in their Filipino heritage, but by 2021, that foundation was crumbling. Marital strife had taken hold, with Maya confiding to friends and family about Larry's controlling behavior and her own brief affair, a fracture that deepened their divide. Larry Millete, 40 at the time, worked in healthcare administration and presented an image of stability. Active in their church, a father who coached youth sports. But behind closed doors, tensions flared. Maya's sister, Marie-Chris Drouaye, later told police that Maya felt trapped, describing Larry as jealous and possessive, unwilling to let her go. By late 2020, Maya had begun exploring divorce, a decision she kept quiet but acted on with purpose. January 7, 2021 was a Thursday, a cold day in Chula Vista with temperatures dipping into the 40s, a day that started like any other for a working mother of 3. For Maya, it would be her last, marked by a single phone call that signaled her intent to break free, a call that would soon become the hinge of a mystery still unresolved. Maya Millete was last seen alive around 5 p.m. on January 7, 2021, at her home in Chula Vista. That afternoon, she'd made a critical move. She called a divorce attorney to schedule a consultation for the following week, a step confirmed by her family and later by police. The call, placed from her cell phone, was one of her final documented actions, a clear sign she was ready to end her 20-year marriage. Her sister, Marie-Chris Drouaye, saw her at the house around that time, noting nothing unusual. Maya was with her kids, the evening routine unfolding as expected. But after 5 p.m., no one outside the home could confirm her presence, and what happened next rests on conflicting accounts and unsettling clues. Larry Millete later told police and family that Maya had been home that night, but grew upset after an argument. He claimed she locked herself in their bedroom around 10 p.m., a story he repeated when her sister, Marie-Chris, called on January 9th to check in. Marie-Chris, uneasy after days of silence, Maya hadn't answered texts or calls since January 7th, pressed Larry for answers. He said he hadn't seen her since she'd secluded herself, suggesting she might have left voluntarily. On January the 10th, Berreth and her husband went to the house, finding the bedroom door unlocked and empty. No Maya, no signs of her belongings gone, just her purse, wallet, and phone charger left behind. Alarmed, Berreth reported her missing to the Chula Vista Police Department that day, 3 days after her last sighting. Two details from January 8th, the day after Maya was last seen, stood out in the early investigation. Neighbors reported hearing 8 loud bangs like gunshots or heavy impacts between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., coming from the direction of the Millete home. A security camera on a nearby street captured the sounds, time-stamped and later analyzed by police, though no source was confirmed. That same day, the family's black Lexus SUV, typically driven by Maya, was seen on home surveillance leaving the garage at 6:45 a.m., returning at 11:25 a.m., with Larry at the wheel. He claimed he'd gone to the beach with their youngest son, but the timing and his evasive answers raised doubts. Maya's phone, last active on January 7th, was now off, her car unused in the garage. Reported missing on January 10th, her absence, in Larry's odd claims, set off a search that would peel back layers of a troubled home. The Chula Vista Police Department launched their investigation into Maya Millete's disappearance on January 10th, 2021, hours after her sister, Berreth, reported her missing. Early efforts focused on the family home at 2320 Paseo Los Gatos, where officers found Maya's personal items, purse, wallet, phone charger, still in place, contradicting Larry Millete's claim she'd left on her own. His story shifted under questioning. First, she'd locked herself in the bedroom. Then she might have gone to clear her head. But her phone, last active on January 7th, was off, and her Toyota Corolla sat untouched in the garage. The Lexus SUV's movement on January 8th, captured, leaving at 6:45 a.m. and returning at 11:25 a.m., drew scrutiny, especially after Larry's vague explanation of a beach trip with their 4-year-old son. Those 8 loud bangs reported by neighbors at 10 p.m. on January 8th, recorded on a security camera, added an ominous layer, possibly gunshots, possibly something else, but unexplained by Larry. Police soon uncovered a pattern of controlling behavior. Maya's family and friends told investigators she described Larry as jealous and obsessive, tracking her movements and reacting angrily to her affair in 2020. A bombshell emerged in July 2021 when detectives accessed Larry's phone records. Between May 2020 and January 2021, he'd contacted spellcasters, online figures claiming to cast spells, over 100 times, paying them to hex Maya into staying with him or to harm her lover. One message sent days before her disappearance read, "Make her want me again." Another on January 8th asked for her to be incapacitated. These exchanges, documented in court filings, painted a man desperate to keep control, willing to turn to bizarre means when divorce loomed. Searches for Maya began January 11, spanning Chula Vista's parks, canyons, and Mount San Miguel, where Larry had once hiked. Over the next 9 months, volunteers, led by Berreth in the Filipino-American community, covered dozens of sites: the Glamis Sand Dunes, Anza Borrego Desert, even a golf course near the home. The FBI and Naval Criminal Investigative Service joined, given Maya's Navy job, but no trace emerged. No body, no clothing, no definitive evidence. A January 23rd search of the house found a gun safe with ammunition, though Larry's registered firearms were accounted for elsewhere. The 8 bangs remained alleged. Experts couldn't confirm gunshots, but the Lexus's 4.5-hour absence on January 8th suggested a window to dispose of something or someone. By summer 2021, Larry was named a person of interest. Police executed 67 search warrants, 19 on the home alone, seizing computers, phones, and the Lexus, which showed no blood but had been cleaned. They conducted 87 interviews, piecing together Maya's final days. Her divorce call on January 7th, her last sighting at 5 p.m., her silence after. On October 19th, 2021, after 9 months of building a circumstantial case, Larry Millete was arrested at his home, charged with first-degree murder and illegal use of a weapon. The arrest came without a body, resting on his behavior, the spellcaster contacts, and the timeline of January 7th. 8. Searches continued over 130,000 acres by late 2021, but Maya remained missing, her fate a question mark etched into a mountain of evidence. Larry Millete was arraigned on October 21, 2021, in San Diego County Superior Court, where he pleaded not guilty to murder and weapons charges. Prosecutors alleged he killed Maya on January 7, 2021, after her divorce call, motivated by rage and a refusal to lose her. No physical evidence of her death, like blood or a body, has surfaced, forcing the case to hinge on Larry's actions. The spellcasters, the Lexus trip, the bangs. Held without bail, his trial has faced delays, motions over evidence, a failed bid for a venue change in March 2024, and competency reviews. As of April 2, 2025, the case remains ongoing, with jury selection stalled and no verdict in sight. Larry, now 43, sits in George Bailey Detention Facility, maintaining his innocence through his attorney. Maya's body has not been found, a void that haunts the investigation. Community searches persist, organized by Maricrees and volunteers, scouring Southern California every few months. Over 40 events by 2025, from Otay Lakes to the Mexican border. The family holds vigils, marking Maya's birthday and disappearance date, keeping her name alive. Her children, now 13, 12, and 7, live with relatives, their mother's absence a daily reality. Prosecutors push forward with a no-body case, a rare but not impossible conviction in California, citing precedents like Kelsey Berreth's. But without remains, doubt lingers, and Larry's silence, unlike Frazee's or Dulos' eventual exposure, keeps the truth buried for now. These cases leave us with facts, questions, and a call to reflect. 3 women gone, 3 investigations driven by what's left behind, 3 outcomes that test the limits of justice when the full story stays out of reach. Kelsey Berreth's murder was proven without her body. A young mother beaten to death in her Colorado home on Thanksgiving 2018. Her fiancé, Patrick Frazee, convicted on the strength of blood evidence, and a witness who saw the cover-up unfold. Jennifer Dulos' disappearance ended in legal consequences but no recovery. Vanishing from her Connecticut garage in May 2019, her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, charged with her murder before his suicide, his girlfriend later imprisoned. Yet Jennifer's remains stay lost. Maya Millete's fate hangs in limbo, her husband's trial unresolved, a California mother gone since January 2021. Larry Millete facing murder charges built on his own words and actions, while searches for her body stretch into their 4th year with no end. Blood in a bathroom, trash bags in Hartford, spellcaster messages in Chula Vista. These fragments, pieced together by police and prosecutors, stood in for the missing whole, proving what direct proof could not. If these cases have struck a chord with you, we'd ask you to engage. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like these, share your thoughts in the comments below, and hit the like button if you found this worth your time. Kelsey, Jennifer, and Maya aren't just names in a script. They're lives that ended too soon, and their cases are a call to keep listening, keep questioning, and keep seeking what's true.